Readings of Almighty God's Words. The responsibilities of leaders and workers. The responsibilities of leaders and workers. 6. Today, we will continue fellowshipping on the responsibilities of leaders and workers, and on the various manifestations of false leaders. At the last gathering, we fellowshipped on items 6 and 7 of the responsibilities of leaders and workers. What is the main content of these two items?
Item 6 is, promote and cultivate all manner of qualified talent, so that all who pursue the truth can have the opportunity to train and enter the truth reality as soon as possible. Item 7 is, allocate and make use of different types of people sensibly, based on their humanity and strengths, such that each is put to their best use.
Last time, we mainly fellowshipped on the principles of God's house for promoting and cultivating people, and why God's house promotes and cultivates people. We also dissected the problems that exist with false leaders when it comes to promoting and cultivating different kinds of talented people. So, what are the main manifestations of false leaders within these two items? Why do we say they are false leaders? There are mainly two aspects. One aspect is that false leaders do not understand the principles for promoting, cultivating, and using different kinds of people, nor do they seek these principles. They don't know what aspects of caliber are important for people to possess, or what criteria are important to meet in order to be a leader or worker. Consequently, they use people indiscriminately based on their own notions and imaginings. Another serious issue is that after promoting, cultivating, and using these people, they don't follow up or check on their work, nor do they find out how well they are doing, or whether they are doing real work, or if they are able to fulfill their responsibilities, or what their character is like, or whether the duties these people are doing are suited to them, and they don't pay attention to whether the people they promote, cultivate, and use are up to standard and in line with the principles. They never check up on these things. False leaders think that it's just a case of promoting people, arranging work for them, and nothing more, and that their responsibilities are then fulfilled. This is how false leaders do their work, and this is also their attitude and viewpoint while they work. So, can these two main manifestations of false leaders prove that they do not and cannot fulfill their responsibilities when it comes to promoting, cultivating, and using people? False leaders do not check up on work or observe different kinds of people, and much less do they get meticulous when it comes to the truth and principles. Comparing the manifestations and states of different kinds of people against the truths they understand and the principles required by God's house. They also cannot discern whether the humanity and strengths of different kinds of people accord with the required principles of God's house for using people. For these reasons, they are especially muddled and sloppy when it comes to promoting and using people and arranging work for them. And all they do is go through the motions and do superficial work based on their notions and imaginings. This being the case, If false leaders are asked to use different kinds of people sensibly and aptly based on their humanity and strengths, can they manage this? Let us put aside for now what the caliber of false leaders is like. Just looking at their attitude toward work and their ways and methods for doing work, and the fact that they don't do any real work at all, but only handle general affairs and do a bit of superficial work that puts them in the limelight, and the fact that they don't do the work of providing people with the truth at all, and don't know how to use the truth to resolve problems. All this is enough to prove that false leaders cannot do the real work of the church. Just based on the fact that false leaders do not do real work, or engage deeply with the brothers and sisters to resolve real problems, and instead act all superior and issue orders, it can be confirmed that they are incapable of performing all aspects of the church work well, in order to promote and cultivate people for God's house. What is your understanding of how to arrange and use different kinds of people?
God's house has different required standards for the various kinds of people who are promoted and cultivated, and people should be promoted and used according to the principles and standards of God's house for promoting people. If some people are fit to be leaders and workers, then they should be cultivated as leaders, workers, and supervisors. If some people possess professional strengths in a certain field, then the duty they do should be arranged according to their professional strengths, so that they are allocated and made use of sensibly.
Does anyone have anything to add?
Another thing is measuring people based on their humanity. If someone's humanity is relatively good, and they love the truth, and they have comprehension ability, then they are a candidate for promotion and cultivation. If their humanity is average, but they have strengths and can do a duty in God's house and render service, then this type of person can also be assigned to an appropriate duty based on their strengths, so that they are put to best use. If they are a person with rather bad humanity and may cause disruptions and disturbances, then having them do a duty would be more trouble than it's worth, so it's not appropriate to arrange for them to do a duty.
If people are differentiated based on their humanity, then as long as they are not evil ones, do not cause disruptions or disturbances, and are able to do a duty, then they accord with the principles of God's house for making use of people. Another type who cannot be used, besides evil people and evil spirits, are those who are of inadequate intelligence. That is, those who accomplish nothing, who are unable to get anything done, incapable of learning a profession, unable to handle simple general affairs, who can't even manage to perform physical labor. People who are of inadequate intelligence and humanity cannot be made use of. Which people fall into this category of having inadequate intelligence? Those who don't understand human language, who lack pure comprehension, who always misunderstand things, get things wrong, and give irrelevant responses to questions, and who are of the same sort as blockheads or mentally disabled people. These are all people who have inadequate intelligence. Then there are extremely absurd people who comprehend all kinds of things differently from normal people. They also have a problem of intelligence. Does inadequate intelligence include being incapable of learning anything?
Yes, it does.
So, does being incapable of learning how to write articles count as having inadequate intelligence? People of this sort don't count. Take learning how to sing and dance, learning computer skills, or learning a foreign language, for instance. Being incapable of learning these things doesn't count as being of inadequate intelligence. So, the inability to learn what kind of things indicates inadequate intelligence? For example, some people have a bit of knowledge, but are incapable of learning how to organize their language when chatting with others. So, can people of this kind fellowship on the truth, pray, and communicate with others normally when they believe in God? When they have an idea in their minds, or when they are in a state, and they want to open up and talk to people about it, and seek the path to a solution, they ponder for days on end, and don't know where to start or how to express themselves. As soon as they speak, they become confused and talk in a muddled way. Their mouths seemingly refuse to do what they're told, and their thoughts are all over the place. For example, you tell them, "Today the weather is nice and the sun is shining," and they will reply, "Yesterday it rained and there was a car accident on that road." They are not on the same page as those they converse with. Is this kind of person of inadequate intelligence?
Yes, they are.
For instance, if they have a headache and you ask them what's wrong, they will say that their heart feels a bit uncomfortable. This response is irrelevant to the question, is it not? This is being too lacking in intelligence. There are so many people like this. Can you give an example?
Some people always go off topic when answering questions. They simply can't understand what other people are asking them.
Often going off topic while talking. This is inadequate intelligence. Then there are people who fail to distinguish between insiders and outsiders when they're talking, and sometimes sell themselves out when they speak, without even realizing it. This, too, is inadequate intelligence. For example, some brothers and sisters live with non-believing family members who ask them, "What does your God tell you to do?" They reply, "The God we believe in is so good. He teaches us to be honest people, and that we are not allowed to lie to anyone, and must speak honestly to everybody." Superficially, it sounds like they are testifying to the work God does, glorifying God, and making their listeners have a good impression of believers and trust them. But is this really the case? What will non-believers say when they hear this? They will say, "Since your God has asked you to be honest people, then tell us truthfully, how much money does your church have? Who gives the most offerings? Who is the leader of your church? How many gathering places do you have?" Those brothers and sisters would be taken aback by that, would they not? Are people like this not dim-witted? Why do they talk to devils and non-believers about being an honest person? In actual fact, they aren't necessarily that honest before God. So, are they not selling themselves out by getting so serious about it with non-believers? Is this not digging a hole and setting a trap for themselves? Are they not blockheads? When opening up your heart or speaking honestly to someone, you must take into account who you're talking to. If it's a devil or a Satan, can you tell them what's really going on? So when it comes to people like this, it is necessary to practice being wise as serpents and harmless as doves. This is God's teaching to humankind. Blockheads don't know to do this. They only know to stick to the regulations and say things like, "We believers are so honest, we don't cheat anyone. Look at you non-believers. You are full of lies, whereas we all speak honestly." And after they have spoken honestly, people have the leverage to use against them. Is this not them failing to distinguish between insiders and outsiders? Is it not being a few cards short of a full deck? They understand some doctrines but don't know how to apply them. They shout some slogans and then they feel they are really spiritual and think that they understand the truth and possess the truth reality. And they show off everywhere. But in the end, Satans and devils take advantage of this and use it against them. This is inadequate intelligence. We just talked about several kinds of people who are of inadequate intelligence. One kind is those who don't understand human language and who fail to understand and grasp the crux and key points of other people's words. Another kind is blockheads, who are unable to accomplish anything and who cannot grasp the principles or key points no matter how they do it. A further kind is those who have extremely bigoted and absurd views on everything. Yet another kind is those who are incapable of learning anything, and who are even incapable of learning how to speak or chat, or how to express their thoughts and opinions clearly so that others can understand them. Although they are somewhat literate, they can't organize their language in their heads, or speak clearly, nor can they express correct views, or accomplish anything. These are all people of inadequate intelligence. No matter what crafts or skills they learn, they are constantly unable to grasp the principles and rules. Even if they do a craft or skill well on occasion, it is by chance. They don't know how they did it well. The next time that they fail to do it well, they don't know why this is the case either. They are incapable of learning anything or becoming proficient in it. If they are asked to learn a craft or a technical skill, no matter how long they spend learning it, they will only grasp the theory. They have listened to sermons for so many years, but haven't understood the truth. If they are asked to take these words and these specific statements that God's house often fellowships on, and turn them into a principle and a path of practice, they will be incapable of doing so even if they work themselves to death, and regardless of how they are taught. This confirms that these people have inadequate intelligence. Some people achieve exactly the same results from doing something at the age of 50 or 60 as they did at 30, without having made any progress at all. They haven't successfully learned a single thing in their lifetime. They haven't idled away their time. They are very attentive and make an effort, but they haven't succeeded in learning anything. This shows that they have inadequate intelligence. Based on what we have fellowshipped, the scope of what's considered inadequate intelligence has become broader, has it not? Would you yourselves count as being of inadequate intelligence? A little bit, to a greater or lesser degree. Why do I say that? Most people have listened to sermons for 5 years, but they still don't understand what the truth is, or what God's intentions are. And some people have listened to sermons for 10 years, or even 20 or 30 years, and still don't understand what the truth reality is, and what words and doctrines are. Their mouths are filled with doctrines, and they spout them excellently. This is a problem with their intelligence. Leaving aside comprehension of the truth for now, let's just say that people display the following manifestations toward some external things, and common sense matters in human life. No matter how many years they have been doing something for, their situation, state, and perception remain the same as when they first started learning it. And no matter how they are guided, taught, or how they practice, they still don't make any progress. This is inadequate intelligence. Selecting and making use of people based on whether or not they have humanity is in line with principles. So tell me, should we cultivate and make use of people who have poor humanity, inadequate intelligence, or the work of evil spirits? That absolutely would not do. Apart from these several kinds of people who do not conform to the principles of God's house for using people, most other people can be used sensibly based on their humanity. For those who are of average humanity, which can't be called either bad or good, they can just be ordinary team members. For those who have fairly good humanity, who are fairly rational and possessed of conscience, who love positive things, who are particularly upstanding, have a sense of justice, and are able to defend the interests of God's house, the emphasis can be placed on cultivating and using these people. As for whether to cultivate and use them as leaders or team leaders, or to do some important work, this depends on their caliber and strengths. This is weighing how to use different kinds of people based on their humanity. Let's talk further about how to use different kinds of people based on their strengths. In addition to caliber, some people also have some professional skills that they excel at. What is meant by the word strengths?
Having a skill in a specialized field, such as being able to compose music, play a musical instrument, or paint pictures.
Understanding music theory, art, and also dance and writing. These are all strengths. Acting and directing are strengths to do with film production. Translation is a linguistic strength, and video production and special effects are also strengths within specific fields. When we talk about strengths, we are referring to professional skills that relate to the central work of the church. Some people already have a basic level of proficiency, and some people study these things after coming to God's house. If a person has basic proficiency, but their humanity isn't up to standard, and they are one of those with inadequate intelligence, an evil person, or an evil spirit, then they cannot be used. If the person's humanity is up to standard, and they possess a strength that God's house has need of, then they can be promoted, cultivated, and made use of, assigned to a team that befits their strengths, or which is related to the professional skills they hold, and set to work right away. Some people do not yet possess a professional strength, but are willing to learn and catch on really quickly. If their humanity is up to standard, then God's house can cultivate them and create the conditions for them to learn, and such people can also be made use of. In summary, the assignment of duties is based on people's caliber and strengths, and as far as possible, people with different strengths should be arranged to work within their own field of expertise, so that they can bring these strengths to bear. If their strengths are not needed by God's house anymore, they can be arranged to do whatever they are capable of doing, based on their caliber and humanity. This is called using people sensibly. If God's house still has a need for their strengths, they should be allowed to continue doing their duty in this field, and cannot be transferred arbitrarily unless there are too many people working in this profession, in which case the number of people should be reduced according to the situation, by reassigning those who are least competent in their profession to other duties. This is using people sensibly. There is a certain type of person who doesn't have any special skills. They can write articles a bit, they can hold a tune when they sing, and learn how to do anything, but they are not the best at these things. What are they best at? They have a bit of caliber. They are relatively possessed of a sense of justice, and they have a bit of an eye for how to judge and make use of people. Beyond that, they most notably possess organizational skills. If you give such a person a task or a job, they can organize people to do it. At the same time, they possess work capability. That is, if you give them a job, they have the ability to do it well and finish it. They have a plan in mind, with steps and a structure. They know how to use people, how to allocate time, and whom to use for this task. If a problem appears, they know how to discuss the solution with everyone. They know how to balance and resolve all these things. A person like this not only possesses work capability, they also speak relatively well. Their words are clear and orderly, and they do not confuse people. When they've assigned work, everyone understands clearly and knows what each person should be doing. No one is idle, and there are no oversights in the work. Their explanation of the details of the work is also relatively clear and orderly, and for especially complicated issues, they offer analyses, fellowship, and list the details, so that everyone understands the issues, knows how to do the work, and knows how to proceed. Beyond that, they can also fellowship on what ways of acting may be flawed, what methods of working will impact efficiency, what people should pay attention to in the course of their work, and so on. That is, they think more than others before they begin to work. They think in more detail, more realistically, and more comprehensively than others. In one respect, they have a brain, and in another, they are eloquent. Having a brain means they do things in an organized fashion, with steps and according to a plan, and with great clarity. Being eloquent means that they can use language to express, clearly and understandably, the thoughts, plans, and calculations in their mind, and that they know how to speak simply and concisely, so that their listeners are not confused. They express themselves in language that is particularly clear, accurate, truthful, and fitting. This is what it means to be eloquent. People like this are eloquent. They possess work capability, organizational skills, and on top of that, they have a sense of responsibility and are relatively possessed of a sense of justice. They are not people pleasers or peacekeepers. When they see evil people causing disruptions and disturbances to the church work, or blockheads and scummy people who don't attend to their proper affairs and act in a slippery way, they get angry, feel displeased, and they can promptly resolve and handle these problems and protect the work and interests of God's house. Having a sense of responsibility and a sense of justice, aren't these manifestations the prominent characteristics of this sort of person's humanity?
Yes.
People like this may not be good at socializing, or may not be very adept in any particular professional skill. But if they possess the characteristics I just described, they can be cultivated as leaders and workers. These characteristics are also their strengths. That is, they are eloquent, possess work capability, organizational skills, and are relatively possessed of a sense of justice. Having a sense of justice is crucial. Do evil people and antichrists have a sense of justice? Antichrists have a wicked nature. It's impossible for them to have a sense of justice. Another crucial thing is that this kind of person has spiritual understanding and the ability to comprehend the truth. This has to do with their caliber. The strengths of this kind of person refer to those humanity characteristics and talents that I mentioned just now, plus the three standards of having the ability to comprehend the truth, bearing a burden for the church, and possessing work capability. Such people can be cultivated as leaders. There is no problem with that. In addition to having a brain and caliber, a leader must have the ability to comprehend the truth and have organizational skills and work capability in their job, as well as eloquence. Some people have very good caliber. They possess spiritual understanding. But when it comes time to fellowship at gatherings, they make a total mess of what they are trying to say. They completely lack the ability to organize their language, and what they say is completely devoid of logic. Can such people be cultivated as leaders?
No, they can't.
Some people just about manage to talk to very small numbers of people. They can fellowship about some states, opinions, and comprehension of the truth, and they can support, provide for, and help others. But around more people, they do not dare to speak up and feel scared, and may even become nervous to the point of tears. Can such people be cultivated? For the kind of person who is of fairly weak and timid humanity, and who is prone to stage fright, if they possess the humanity, strengths, and comprehension ability to be a leader, they can be cultivated to become a team leader or a church leader. First, just cultivate and train them. After they have experienced for a period of time, they will gain insight and thereby become a little more courageous, and will no longer be afraid of speaking or get stage fright. In summary, when it comes to those who have the humanity characteristics and strengths that we just fellowshipped about, they can be cultivated to become leaders, so long as their humanity is up to standard. As we said last time, in order for someone to be cultivated as a leader, they don't necessarily have to understand all truths, be able to submit to God, have a God-fearing heart, and so on. It isn't absolutely necessary to meet these criteria. If someone possesses a certain caliber, has spiritual understanding, and is able to accept the truth, then they can be promoted and cultivated. Is this not using people sensibly? The most crucial criterion is whether someone's humanity is up to standard or not. Some people, having listened to what I have said, feel that they already meet the criteria for being a leader and should be promoted. This is a misunderstanding on their part, is it not? Is being a leader such a simple matter? They think, I am really methodical, I have organizational skills, and I'm eloquent, in that I can explain even the most complex matters clearly. So why doesn't God's house promote me? Why don't the brothers and sisters choose me to be a leader? How come the senior leaders fail to spot that I am talented? Don't worry. If you really do meet the criteria for being a leader or a worker, then sooner or later you will be promoted and allowed to train yourself. What matters now is that you must train yourself a great deal in practicing the truth and handling affairs according to principles, and proactively help others, and solve real problems for God's chosen people. When God's chosen people see that you have good caliber and can solve real problems, they will recommend you and elect you. If you don't take the initiative to do a bit of real work and just wait for the day when you are suddenly elected as a leader or promoted as an exception by the above, that is never going to happen. You must do some real work so that everyone can see it. Once everyone has seen your strengths for themselves and feels that you are someone who should be promoted, cultivated, and used, they will naturally recommend you and elect you. If you feel right now that you are fit to be a leader, but no one has elected you, and God's house hasn't promoted you, why is that? One thing is for sure: you are not yet recognized in the eyes of the brothers and sisters. Maybe it's your humanity, maybe it's your pursuit, or maybe it's your strengths or caliber. If the brothers and sisters don't recognize or approve of one of these aspects, they won't elect you or recommend you. So you have to keep working hard, keep on pursuing and training yourself, and when you genuinely understand the truth and can handle matters according to the principles, people will naturally recommend you and elect you. It's a case of things taking their natural course when the conditions are right. There is no need to constantly look forward to being a leader or think about it all the time. This is an extravagant desire. You should have an ordinary heart. Be someone who pursues the truth. Be considerate of God's intentions, and learn to be submissive and patient. You cannot blindly pursue being a leader. That is an ambition, and it is not the right path. You should not have this ambition and desire all the time. Even if you really do have caliber, you must wait until you enter the truth reality before you can be up to the task of serving as a leader or worker. If you do not understand the truth and do not know how to practice the truth, then even if you are selected to be a leader or a worker, you will not be able to do any real work and will have to be dismissed and eliminated, which is something that happens often. If you think yourself fit to be a leader, possessed of the talent, caliber, and humanity for leadership, yet God's house has not promoted you and the brothers and sisters have not elected you, how should you treat the matter? There is a path of practice here that you can follow. You must thoroughly know yourself. Look to see if what it boils down to is that you have a problem with your humanity, or that the revelation of some aspect of your corrupt disposition repulses people, or whether it is that you do not possess the truth reality and are unconvincing to others, or that the performance of your duty is not up to standard. You must reflect on all these things and see where it is exactly that you fall short. After you have reflected for a while and found where your problem is, you must promptly seek the truth to resolve it and enter the truth reality and strive to achieve a change and to grow, so that when those around you see it, they will say, "These days he's been much better than before. He works solidly and takes his profession seriously, and he's especially focused on the truth principles. He doesn't do things impetuously or perfunctorily, and he's more conscientious and responsible about his work. He used to like talking big now and then, and constantly flaunted himself, but now he's much more low-key and no longer overbearing. Even if he is able to do a few things, he doesn't boast about it, and when he's finished something, he repeatedly reflects on it for fear of doing something wrong. He acts much more cautiously than before, and with a God-fearing heart. And most of all, he can fellowship about the truth to resolve a few problems. Indeed, he's grown. Those around you who have interacted with you for a while find that you have undergone obvious change and growth in your human life, self-conduct, and handling of matters, and in your attitude toward your work, and in your treatment of the truth principles alike. You exert more effort than before and are rigorous in your speech and acts. The brothers and sisters see all this and take it to heart. Perhaps then you will be able to run as a candidate in the next election, and you will have a hope to be elected as a leader. If you can truly do some important duty, you will gain God's blessing. If you truly have a burden and have such a sense of responsibility and wish to carry a load, then hurry up and train yourself. Focus on practicing the truth and come to act with principles. Once you have life experience and can write articles of testimony, you will truly have grown. And if you can bear witness for God, then you can certainly gain the work of the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit is working on you, it means that God looks on you with favor, and with the Holy Spirit guiding you, your opportunity will soon arise. You may have a burden now, but your stature is insufficient, and your life experience too shallow. So even if you were to become a leader, you would be liable to tumble. You must pursue life entry, resolve your extravagant desires first, willingly be a follower, and come to submit to God truly, with no words of complaints for whatever He orchestrates or arranges. When you are possessed of this stature, your opportunity will come. That you wish to take on a heavy load, that you have this burden, is a good thing. It shows that you have a proactive heart that seeks to make progress, and that you want to be considerate of God's intentions and follow God's will. This is not an ambition, but a true burden. It is the responsibility of those who pursue the truth and the object of their pursuit. You have no selfish motives and are not out for your own sake, but to bear witness for God and satisfy Him. This is what is most blessed by God, and He will make suitable arrangements for you. For now, you just concern yourself with pursuing life entry, fulfill your duty properly first, and then write a few experiential testimony articles to bear witness to God. If your testimonies are true and practical, people who read them will admire you and like you, and be willing to engage with you and recommend you, and so your opportunity will come. Therefore, you absolutely must equip yourself with the truth before the opportunity comes. First, have practical experience, and then you will naturally have true testimony. The results of your duty will get better and better, by which time you will not be able to hide even if you wanted to, and the brothers and sisters around you will recommend you. It is because people who have the truth reality are needed not only by God's house, but also by God's chosen people. Everyone likes to engage with people who have the truth reality, and everyone likes to associate with friends who have the truth reality. If you experience to this degree, and everyone sees that you have true testimony and acknowledges that you have the truth reality, you will not be able to avoid becoming a leader even if you wanted to, and the brothers and sisters will insist on electing you. Is that not the case? When the prodigal son turns back and returns to God, God is pleased, happy, and comforted in his heart. As a person with the truth reality, how could you not be used by God? That would be an impossibility. God's intention is to gain more people who can bear witness for Him. It is to perfect all who love Him, and to make a group of people who are of one heart and mind with Him as early as possible. Therefore, in God's house, all who pursue the truth have great prospects, and the prospects of those who love God sincerely are without limit. Everyone should understand God's intention. It is indeed a positive thing to have this burden, and it is something those with a conscience and reason should possess. But not everyone will necessarily be able to take on a heavy load. Where does this discrepancy come from? Whatever your strengths or capabilities, and however high your IQ may be, what is crucial is your pursuit and the path you walk. If your humanity is up to standard, and you have a certain caliber, but you are not someone who pursues the truth, and you merely have good humanity and some sense of burden, can you do the work of a church leader well? Do you guarantee that you can solve problems using the truth? If you cannot guarantee it, then you are still incompetent in your work. Even if you were elected or assigned to be a leader, you would still be incapable of doing the work. So what point would that serve? Although it would satisfy your vanity, it would harm the brothers and sisters and delay the church's work. If you meet the criteria to be a leader or a worker, and you are someone who pursues the truth, and you also have some experiential testimonies, then you will definitely be able to do a good job as a leader, because you have experiential testimonies. You are someone who understands the truth and can shoulder the heavy burden of being a church leader. That your humanity is up to standard, and you also have certain strengths are just basic criteria for being promoted, cultivated, and used by God's house. But whether you can do a good job as a leader depends on whether you have real experience and the truth reality. This is what matters most. Some people are correct people and pursue the truth, but they have believed for just 3 to 5 years and have no real experience. Can such people do the work of a church leader well? I'm afraid they won't be competent in the work. Where do they fall short? They lack practical experience and haven't yet come to understand the truth. Even if they can speak many words and doctrines, it is still beyond them to solve problems using the truth. Therefore, they are still not competent in the work of a leader and need to continue training themselves in order to achieve understanding of the truth and entry into the truth reality. For instance, if a person is of up-to-standard humanity and fairly honest, and seldom lies and cheats, and does their duty without causing disruption or disturbance, but is poor at pursuing the truth, can such a person be cultivated to be a leader or a worker? This would be very difficult. Would a person who meets the criteria for being promoted, cultivated and used, but who does not pursue the truth, be capable of becoming someone who pursues the truth if they were promoted to be a leader or a worker? Would they be able to start pursuing the truth? Would they be able to enter into the truth reality after working as a leader or a worker for a period of time? That would be an impossibility. No matter what criteria a person meets, as long as they are not someone who pursues the truth, they absolutely cannot be elected or promoted as a leader or a worker. If a person is possessed of humanity and caliber that are up to standard, and is also able to accept the truth and undergo some changes, then they can be promoted, cultivated, and used, and as a result, they will then get the opportunity to train themselves, enter into the truth reality, and embark on the path to salvation and perfection. Therefore, no matter who God's house promotes to be a leader, worker, or supervisor, the purpose is not to satisfy your personal desires and ambitions, nor to fulfill your ideals, but to enable you to embark on the path of salvation and become a person to be perfected.